This is the assignment launch for your first assignment, which is a formative assignment. As previously discussed, this is designed to give you the opportunity to practice your academic skills and receive feedback before your formal assignment starts. Therefore, this assignment will not affect your grade and does not contribute to your final end-of-year assessments. However, it does provide essential feedback and support in producing academic work. So let's have a look at what we'd like you to do. So using this statement, we would like you to write an essay that discusses the role of veterinary nursing in the rehabilitation of wildlife. So the statement from the British Veterinary Zoological Society states that the aim of treatment of a wildlife casualty should always be the return of an animal successfully to the wild. Now, I appreciate that this isn't always possible, so we would expect within your essay for you to describe a range of perspectives surrounding wildlife rehabilitation, as well as focusing on the role of the veterinary nurse. Now, as you can see from the image here, this is a British setting, and certainly the quote is from the British Veterinary Zoological Society, but we are more than happy for you to use examples and evidence from non-British and non-native species. It may well be that you have examples that you want to use from international projects, or examples of successful reintroduction of non-UK species, and that's absolutely fine. There does need to be evidence and examples throughout your essay, so we do want you to be able to make points and then expand on them using specific examples. And equally, there must be references throughout your text. Now, for this assignment specifically, we have requested a minimum of 5 sources. However, this is, as it states, a minimum. So if you do find more than 5, please do include them. And I would encourage you to think about the type of references that you are including. So with that in mind, for this specific assignment, and this is not necessarily going to be the case for other assignments that you have this year, but for this assignment, we have specified specifically what references we would like you to use in terms of types of referencing. So we would like you to use 2 book sources, 2 academic journal sources, and 1 internet source. Now, if you're unsure where to start with this, I would encourage you to go back to the academic referencing a PowerPoint from last week. I do appreciate that because you haven't yet formally enrolled, you might not have access to your Open Athens account or your Shilabeth account. So for this assignment specifically, I would strongly advise you to use Google Scholar, as this will give you ample access to academic references. Obviously, it's a starting point, but it will hopefully give you some key references that you can use. We would also like you to use an internet source, but do consider the credibility and validity of the sources that you're using, because you will find that there will be a number of sources available from less reputable websites. And just bear that in mind when you're collecting information to include. The other thing just to say is you probably will find quite easily some very emotive and potentially biased references surrounding wildlife rehabilitation. It's certainly something that people get passionate about, and whenever there's passion, there does tend to be quite strong opinions. So wherever possible, you do need to try and stay balanced and quite objective and scientific in your discussion. So avoid using overly emotive language or overly emotive sources, because this will lower the quality of your writing and the credibility of your writing. So just to bear in mind. You are more than welcome to use trade or popular magazines, and you may find that these are quite good sources, particularly when you're talking about wildlife, but just remember they aren't peer reviewed, meaning that they haven't gone through extensive assessment by industry experts, so therefore some of the information may not be completely accurate, or you may find is designed more for entertainment or reader engagement, so just bear that in mind. So in terms of your material, everything must be correctly referenced, and as we discussed the other day, we use APA 7th edition at University Centre Sparsholt, so do make sure that any time you glean information that isn't your own or isn't common knowledge, that you provide an accurate citation and an accurate reference for it. Again, if you need any help with this, please do refer back to the academic referencing PowerPoint from last week, but equally do get in contact with us if you have any problems. Equally, if you are struggling to find references, please do email myself, and I can certainly try and point you in the right direction. Please don't suffer in silence. So there are some specific requirements as well that we need to make you aware of. The first is that there is a word count for this essay, which we have set at 1,000 words. There is a 10% margin either way, so this means that you can write a minimum of 900 words and a maximum of 1,100 words. Generally, we find students who are massively under the word count, that their work is quite superficial, that they haven't really discussed the points or the examples particularly well. So do try and get to the 1,000 words. Equally, it is advised to avoid going too much over the 10%. As firstly, we won't mark it, but secondly, we find that students who dramatically go over word counts do tend to waffle, and you might find that your essay is quite unfocused. So do try and be concise in your writing style. Think about punctuation, think about how you're writing, to allow it to be as concise as possible. We would also like you to include your word count in your submission. Now this can be done in a number of ways. For example, you could put it as a cover, put a cover page in your essay and put it on there, but equally you could include it in your footer or your header so that it's on every page and it's easy to access. The essay itself, this time we would like you to submit it by email to myself, so jo.bond@sparshott.ac.uk. Once you have enrolled, what we will do is all other assignments will be submitted via Ledge, and there is an upload that we use on Ledge. I will go through that with you another time, so we'll go through it in group tutorial, but for ease for this particular assignment, as I say, I'd like you to email it directly to me. So the deadline for this assignment is the 29th of October, which I appreciate is only 10 days away, but we have done this intentionally because it allows for you to get a very quick turnaround on feedback, and it also means that it gives you an opportunity to see how quickly you can research and the type of approach you take to academic writing. Now, this will not be the norm for the rest of your assignments. We do give you ample time to do things, but for all of our first year students, they do this as part of their induction program. So actually other courses have had slightly less time, they had more of a week, but we do appreciate that you are not formally with us yet, so we have given you slightly longer. So in terms of deadlines, we work on a 1 minute to midnight deadline, and that will be the same throughout the rest of your course. That's standardized across the program. So obviously you can get it in before that if you wish to, but just bear in mind that is the deadline. Any assignments that we receive after this time will have an automatic 40% cap on them, and equally it will reduce a lot of your stress if you try and get it to me well ahead of time. Getting it ahead of time also means you have time to proofread it, which is obviously again really important. So as I say, just bear this deadline in mind, and if you want to submit it earlier, that's absolutely fine. We will turn them round to you within a week, so again you can have the opportunity to get the feedback nice and promptly, and then, as I mentioned before, you will get a second submission of this specific assignment to allow you to have the opportunity to respond to feedback and see whether you did that effectively. This is unique for this assignment. As previously discussed, we do not do resubmissions for any of our assignments if they have been passed first time. If you do fail an assignment, depending on the rest of your modules, you can be given a summer reattempt, but that will be later on in the year. So this is unique for this specific assignment. So the last thing I want to do is just show you the grading criteria. So I've attached the assignment brief, and we try and be as transparent as possible with our marking. And as a result, we use a standardized grading criteria across all of our level 4 programs. So the first year of the degree is level 4. So just to give you some idea, we've got a 40 to 49, which would be seen as a bare pass. And as you can see, it's a descriptive piece of work that demonstrates a limited or basic grasp of the topic. So it might be that actually you haven't really included very many examples, or the examples that you have included haven't been particularly accurate. Maybe there's some errors within your writing, but you have at least covered main area. So for example, in this assignment, what we're looking for is that you provide an essay which talks about wildlife rehabilitation. So as long as you do that, you would get a 40, but maybe you haven't done it in a particularly effective manner. Equally, there is research there, but maybe you have only just done the 5, or maybe the references that you've used haven't been particularly valuable. Maybe they're outdated, but you have provided APA 6th edition and a reference list. I forgot to say before, you do need to include a reference list as part of your submission. And equally, maybe your writing style is quite informal. Maybe there's lots of errors in your grammar and your spelling and your punctuation. So it's enough to pass, but it doesn't really show a particularly high ability. Whereas with your 60 to 69, which would be considered a merit, the work is considered to demonstrate the main topics in a thorough manner, with some analysis, which is a higher skill. The research is very good, and you've used a wide range of relevant sources. You've used APA 7th edition really well, and maybe there's a few errors, but overall it's a very good presentation. And equally with your instructions and your organisation, there's a nice level of expression. It's structured well, there's very limited spelling and grammatical errors, and overall it's a very good presentation. Now, obviously, I appreciate everyone's come from slightly different backgrounds, so please don't get fixated on the grade this time, because as we said before, it's the first essay you've written at level 4, and as we mentioned the first time in our first lecture together, it is a jump up from A levels and extended diplomas, but equally we want you to do the best you can. So please do take time over this piece of work, but equally please don't criticize yourself too much if you don't quite do as you that you expected. We will obviously give you thorough feedback, and we will hope that you improve on the second one. So please do see it as a practice method, as a way of trying out things before your formal essays, and try not to be too critical on yourself if you feel like you're not quite achieving where you would hope to achieve. So what I would ask you to do is any questions that you might have, for those of you listening back to this on Teams, if you can add it to the chat underneath the Teams post. I know there are a few of you that aren't able to access Teams and will be receiving this via email, so please do get in contact with me directly if you have any questions. Otherwise, I hope you have a really interesting time exploring this topic. We've certainly had some students in the past that have really enjoyed looking at wildlife, and as I say, please do see it for what it is, which is an opportunity to practice academic skills. I hope it doesn't cause you too much stress, but as always, do get in contact if you have any further questions or concerns.